Hey everybody, it's Rockin' Tommy 98, and tonight I'm gonna tell you a couple. We're gonna be going over 3-2-1 Penguins, parents theory. Two parents theories, actually. So basically, it's a show about Jason and Michelle, twin siblings, getting dropped off at their grandmom's house for the summer. And then they find a spaceship in the attic, and then they go on daily adventures with them and learn some lessons too. And now their grandmom has blue hair, who is pretty religious, who has a pretty big religious background. So she makes them say prayers every night before they go to bed, and also, alright, let's get down to that. She's a really nice lady though, Jason and Michelle's grandmom. And she cares for them dearly, as if they were her own children. Because the first theory I want to tell you is that Jason and Michelle's parents died on the way over to their honeymoon in a plane crash, which is why they're never shown or heard from throughout the entire series from that point onward. They were only shown briefly at the beginning of the first episode, but then that's it. We never see or hear from them since throughout the entire series. Even I went to the last episode, A Big Place, the very last episode of 3-2-1 Penguins, the series finale, and I didn't even see their parents picking them up at all. It was just a simple good night, and that was it. And it makes me think that Jason and Michelle's parents died in a plane crash, because the mom says in the beginning, "I'm afraid we'll have to run or we'll miss our flight," which means they could have passed away on the way over to their honeymoon in a tragic plane crash. And then the grandmom had to take custody of them. She found out, and she had to hide the truth from Jason and Michelle and had to take custody of them. And Jason and Michelle never seemed to ask what happened to their mom and dad. Just still had a good time at grandmom's house. And they're very lucky kids to live in a house like that. Like, if I was going to see my grandmother in the Poconos and she had a house like that, I'd love it. I'd love to stay there the whole summer. The show has been going on for 8 years, from 2000 to 2008. Alright, before their parents left them for good, unintentionally, before their parents died, their dad left them a Turbo 3000 or a Nintendo 64 without getting into copyright issues, saying that it'll keep them busy while being at grandmom's house. Which is, I feel very bad for the kids becoming orphans shortly after. So, and then Jason then went to go inside and then try to hook it up to their grandmom's 1940s old TV, or old TV from the 40s, or 50s, or 30s or so. So, he tried to hook it up to the TV, and then played it. And then it almost immediately broke the TV. And so they didn't have a TV to play their new Turbo 3000 on. And then they had to go and eat dinner, which was a kidney pie for the first summer in grandmom's house. And Jason and Michelle weren't too keen about it when they got it. And then Jason mentions that, you know what, actually, back to the theory. Sorry I got carried away. I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen the show. I liked the show. For whatever reason, I looked up on the internet that it was unsuccessful. Only lasted for 2 seasons. Which was probably a good thing, so it doesn't get old. So it doesn't get bad like today's shows, like The Simpsons or SpongeBob. Yeah, you shouldn't let shows overstay their welcome. Otherwise it'll get bad anymore. And people will hate it. With my new Jesse Plots series, I'm on episode 3 of season 1 now. You know what? Snap out of it. Let's get back to the theory. Right. The grandmum gets a call from the airport. Gets a call from one of her other children, Jason and Michelle's aunt or uncle, saying that their parents had passed away in a plane crash. Then this really, really upset Grandmum, the Grandmum, that she went out and cried and cried and cried until she felt better again and went back inside. And that's why she cares very much for her grandkids, to get over the loss of her son and daughter-in-law. And she raised them real well, and the kids didn't even bother wondering what happened to them. And so yeah, that covers my first theory on their parents, Jason and Michelle's parents from 321 Penguins. Now theory number 2 is that the parents, they wanted to have kids, and they were happy despite their financial issues. The dad worked at McDonald's, and the mom, actually no, the dad worked at White Castle or McDonald's, and the mom worked at Burger Bell, which is a Burger King, without getting into copyright issues. And then one day, Mrs. Conrad contacted her husband saying that she was pregnant with twins. And then they were both really excited. And then the one day the babies came, named them Jason and Michelle Conrad. And then by the time Jason and Michelle were 8 years old, they realized that they couldn't afford to raise them anymore. And it really upset them, and they liked their jobs in fast food places, but unfortunately they couldn't make enough money to help them and their children. So they ended up having to give them to their grandmum because they couldn't make enough money. They liked their jobs more than they liked their jobs so much that they wouldn't leave, and they got the highest raises they could get, and it still wasn't enough. So poor Mr. and Mrs. Conrad had to make them confide in the dad's mom, let's just say. And then Jason and Michelle, they tricked them into bringing them there for the summer. And so they brought them all the way out in the Poconos from Maryland, maybe. And then kept it a secret from their grandmum, and the grandmum agreed to keep it secret. So they dropped them off at the grandmum's house, and then after that, they just went straight home, which the whole trip was really just a setup on getting the kids to the grandmum's house forever, which I'm sure that the grandmum would have raised them well, just as well that their parents would have. Well, they were great parents. They're not bad parents at all. They loved them dearly, but they couldn't make enough money. And why they couldn't get better jobs is because that they got into a lot of trouble when they were kids. Alright, so Mr. Conrad, when he was a teenager, he pulled the fire alarm in his school on accident. And then he was expelled from school as soon as they found out, and he couldn't even get his GED. He ended up working at McDonald's for the rest of his life. The poor man. And then Mrs. Conrad. She had a very bad disability with, she had severe ADHD and she couldn't pay attention in class that well, which meant that she ended up dropping out of school also and had to work at Burger Bell. And that's how they thought they had enough money for kids, but they really didn't. The grandmom had to take custody of them while keeping it a secret that they were going there for the summer, which, no, they were there pretty much just really living there, not staying there for the summer, staying there year-round, really, in the Poconos in a cottage, which sounds kind of cold, but it looked like that the grandmom has, has, well, good insulation up. Alright, so those were my two theories on 3-1 penguins of the parents' theory. One, either the parents died in a plane crash on the way over to wherever they're going to have their honeymoon at, and the second theory is that the parents were too poor to raise them, even though they really loved them and wanted to raise them. They're both really sad theories, but the first theory is even more sad. Or maybe it's just that they really did go on their honeymoon without a plane crash at all, or giving them up, and had just the right money. And then, really, those 8 years were really just memories of their adventures through that whole summer. And then after the last episode, they came home to start school. Back in Maryland, maybe. Yeah, but in years terms, like from 2000 to 2008. So, the Poconos are in Pennsylvania, and it's not warm there all year round. Which I live in the state right next to Pennsylvania. And it's not warm here all year round. You've seen in my past videos how cold it gets. Like the snow tunnel, for example. But it still gets warm here. If you've seen in my recent videos with me paddleboarding and going to the beach at Oxford Lake. So yeah, those were my two theories on Jason and Michelle's parents from 3-1 Penguins. And I'll be coming out with another theory real shortly about another character from 3-1 Penguins. So stick around and I'll see you next time. Bye.